For 6 months, the garage had been mocking me. Every time I walked past, I could feel the weight of accumulated procrastination pressing against the door like a physical force. In the past month alone, Jenna had mentioned it 3 times. "Preston, we really need to clean out that garage." Her voice carried that particular edge, which meant she'd keep mentioning it until I did something. But that Saturday in late October, with Jenna at her sister's for the weekend and Lily at a sleepover, I finally ran out of excuses. The house felt too quiet without, and I needed something to occupy my hands while my mind wandered through the comfortable silence. I started with the easy stuff: broken lawn chairs that had been waiting for repair since the Obama administration. Empty paint cans from the bedroom renovation we done 3 summers ago. A treadmill we'd used exactly twice before it became the world's most expensive clothes hanger. By mid-afternoon, sweat sticking my t-shirt to my back, I'd worked my way to the back corner, where Jenna kept her yoga equipment and the holiday decorations we'd accumulated over 9 years of marriage. That's when I found the bin. It was tucked behind her yoga mat carrier, shoved into the corner like it was hiding, like it wanted to be for carting. The label read decorations in Jenna's handwriting, but the dust pattern was wrong. Everything else back here had a thick layer of grey fess, the kind that accumulates when things sit undisturbed for years. This bin had been moved recently, within the past few weeks, maybe days. My investigator's brain kicked in before I'd even registered what I was seeing. 12 years of fraud detection for an insurance company teaches you to notice discrepancies, the small details that don't quite fit the pattern. I popped the lid expecting tangled Christmas lights. Instead, I found a grey Nike t-shirt, size large. I wear medium, a silver cufflink with a D engraved on it, catching the light from the garage window and throwing tiny rainbows across the concrete floor. A half-empty bottle of cologne, Armani code, according to the label. I'd never owned a bottle of Armani anything in my life. Beneath these items, a leather travel kit containing a razor, shaving cream, and a toothbrush that definitely wasn't mine. My stomach dropped through the concrete floor. I knew exactly who these belonged to. Derek Whitfield, the friendly software consultant who'd lived next door for 2 years. The guy who'd helped me fix my lawnmower last spring and always waved when he was getting his mail. The neighbor who'd moved away a month ago without so much as a goodbye. His house still sat empty, a weathered for sale sign tilting in the Hofengarten. I held the cufflink up to the light filtering through the dusty garage window. The engraving was professional, expensive. Derek didn't move. Son, where the hell was he? In 8 years in Army intelligence teaches you a few things. How to read a room, how to spot a lie, and most importantly, how to keep your mouth shut when every instinct screams at you to start asking questions. I photographed everything in that bin. Every angle, every item, the position of the bin itself relative to the other storage containers. Then I put it all back exactly as I'd found it and spent the next 2 hours finishing the garage like nothing had happened. That night, Jenna came home glowing from her sister's place. She kissed me at the door. A quick peck that used to mean something, but now felt like a performance, and launched into a detailed recap of her weekend. You would not believe Bethy's new boyfriend. Total disaster. He showed up to dinner wearing cargo shorts. Preston, and spent 20 minutes explaining cryptocurrency to us like we were children. I told her she needs to raise her standards, but you know how she How is she? I asked, watching her face carefully. Oh, still convinced every guy is the one, until he proves otherwise. Remember that accountant she dated last year? The one who turned out to be living with his mother at 42. She laughed, and I studied the way her eyes crinkled, the way her hand touched her throat in that familiar gesture she made when she was relaxed and happy. This was Jenna at her most charming, witty, warm, completely at ease. This was also a woman who had hidden another man's belongings in our garage and had been lying to me for God knows how long. "Did you get the garage cleaned out?" she asked, moving past me toward the kitchen. I waited a beat too long to answer. She didn't seem to notice. Made some progress. Still have a few boxes to go through. Well, there's no rush. It's not like anyone ever goes back there anyway. No, I thought, or just you hiding your lover's things behind the yoga equipment. I watched her pour a glass of wine, open the refrigerator to inspect the lettuce I'd made for dinner. She mentioned nothing about Derek, not a word, like the guy had never existed. Later I lay awake at 200 a.m. listening to her breathe beside me. She slept peacefully, her face soft in the darkness, while I ran probability calculations in my head like I was back in the sandbox analyzing enemy movements. That's when the realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. Jenna hadn't mentioned Derek's name in a month, not once. We used to talk about him casually. Derek's trimming his hedges again. Or Derek said the HOA is raising fees. Or Derek offered to help you with the lawnmower. Nathan talk, the kind of idle chatter that fills married life. But for the past 4 weeks, it was like he'd been surgically removed from her vocabulary. The next morning, I waited until she was in the shower before checking her phone. She'd left it on the kitchen counter, trusting as always. Why wouldn't she trust me? I was her husband. The text messages went back 6 weeks, no further. Her storage history showed a complete wipe from 6 weeks ago. People don't delete their entire message history unless they're hiding something worth hiding. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. 3 days later, I drove past Derek's house on my way home from work. The mail was piling up in the box, spilling onto the ground. The lawn had gone from overgrown to abandoned property territory. The for sale sign had been there so long it was starting to fade. Nobody was showing this house. Nobody was even pretending to. I called the real estate agent listed on the sign the next day, identifying myself as a potential buyer. A woman named Patricia something, perky voice, desperate to make a sale in what had apparently been a slow quarter. The Whitfield property, oh, that's a wonderful home. 4 bedrooms, updated kitchen, gorgeous hardwood floors throughout. The backyard has a beautiful patio, perfect for entertaining. Are you looking to schedule a viewing? Actually, I was hoping to learn more about the seller's situation first. Is he motivated? Any flexibility on the price? Patricia's voice took on a practiced, confidential tone, the kind real estate agents use when they think they're about to close a deal. Well, between you and me, the owner listed this property significantly under market value, at least 40,000 under comparable homes in the neighborhood. He's very motivated. Needs to sell quickly. Some kind of international work allocation, from what I understand. International where? To. I'm not certain of the specifics. Somewhere in Europe, I believe. Or maybe Asia. The communications have been somewhat vague. Have you met him, Mr. Whitfield? A pause. Longer than it should have been. Well, no. All our communication has been via email. He handled everything digitally. Signed the listing agreement through DocuSign, provided photos of the property himself. Very modern approach. Honestly, some sellers prefer it that way. Do you have a forwarding address for him, in case there are questions during the sale process? I'm afraid not. He mentioned moving overseas, but no specific location. His instructions were to deposit the proceeds into a designated account once the sale closes. Is that going to be a problem? I told her I'd call back to schedule a viewing and hung up. A man doesn't list his house significantly under market value and vanish without a forwarding address unless he's running from something, or unless someone's running him. That night I sat in my home office with a legal pad, mapping out everything I knew. The affair, probable based on the evidence. Derek's sudden disappearance, confirmed by the real estate situation. Jenna's behavior, consistent with someone hiding something. The question that kept circling back was Simple's. Where was Derek Whitfield? And the question that followed it was worse. What did my wife know about his disappearance? Breaking into Derek's house wasn't difficult. 2 decades of government service, 8 years Army intelligence, 12 years as a senior investigator for an insurance firm specializing in fraud, gives you a particular set of skills. The kind of skills you hope you'll never need to use in your personal life. The kind of skills that make you dangerous when your back is against the wall. I went in at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday when the neighbors were least likely to notice anything suspicious. The back door had a simple quick-set deadbolt that surrendered in under 30 seconds. I'd brought a tension wrench and a hook pick, the tools of the trade, for anyone who'd ever needed to access places they weren't supposed to key. The house smelled like dust and neglect. Furniture covered in cloth sheets, like someone had prepared for a long absence, but left in a hurry. The kind of preparation you make when you're planning to be gone for months, not the kind you make when you're leaving forever. I moved through the house systematically, room by room. The living room was staged like a furniture showroom. Nothing personal, no photographs, no indication anyone had actually lived here. The kitchen told a different story. The refrigerator had been emptied, but not cleaned. A half-dried puddle of something that used to be orange juice sat at the bottom of the vegetable drawer, and the freezer still had fuss built up and a forgotten bag of peas. The bedroom was where things got interesting. In the closet, behind a row of suits that probably cost more than my car, I found a wall safe. Professional installation, recessed into the wall behind a false panel that swung open on concealed hinges. The door hung open empty, but the dust patterns told a story. This safe had been opened recently, within the past few weeks, and whatever had been inside was gone. Someone had come back for whatever Derek was hiding. The question was whether Derek had come back himself, or whether someone else had known the combination. The trash had been mostly emptied, but I found a torn receipt caught behind the bathroom waste basket. Secure space storage, a facility on the other side of town. Dated 5 weeks ago. Unit 247. I photographed the receipt, the safe, the general state of the house. Then, on my way out, I checked Derek's desk drawers. In the bottom one, buried under old copies of Wired magazine and a collection of take-out menus, I found a burner phone, the kind you buy at a convenience store with cash. Battery dead, no charger in sight. I took it. It took me 3 different stores to find a compatible charger. Radio Shack was long dead. And apparently the phone was old enough that most modern cables didn't fit. Finally, a clerk at a discount electronics store in a strip mall found something that worked. When the phone finally powered on in my car, parked in the back corner of a grocery store lot as anonymous as I could manage, my hands were steady. 8 years of deployment will do that to you. You learn to suppress the physiological stress responses that make lesser men shake. You learn to observe, analyze, and act without letting emotion cloud your judgment. The phone contained exactly one contact, F as J's. The text history was extensive. I scrolled through it slowly, each message landing like a blow to the chest. I can't stop thinking about last night. You're the only real thing in my life right now. When can I see you again? I hate going home and pretending. Every time I look at him, I feel like a fraud. That last one hit different. Every time I look at him, that was me. She was talking about her husband of 9 years. The fraud in her eyes. I kept scrolling. The tone of the messages shifted as I went deeper into the history. Early texts were flirtatious, playful, the dance of two people falling into something they knew was wrong. Later texts grew more serious, more urgent. Is everything okay? You seemed worried last night. I found something. We need to talk in person. This is bigger than us. I don't know what to do. Plus, the messages stopped abruptly 5 weeks ago. The second to last text from Derek Rate. We need to talk about what you found tonight. Don't tell anyone, I mean it. Anyone. The last text from Jenna, sent 10 minutes later. It's handled. I sat in my car for a long time, reading those 2 words over and over. It's handled. Not. What do you mean? Not. I'm scared. What should we do? Not. Let's go to the police. Not even Var. What about Preston? Just Var. It's handled. My vision went red at the edges. I closed my eyes and breathed. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. The technique I'd learned for staying calm under fire when bullets were flying and men were dying around you. When I opened my eyes, my hands were still steady. My heartbeat was normal, but something had fundamentally shifted inside me. This wasn't a story about a man crying over betrayal. This wasn't a scene from some pathetic domestic drama where the wronged husband begs for explanations and weeps about his broken heart. This was a man realizing his wife might be involved in something far worse than infidelity. What did Jenna handle? A Nolan Price and I had served together in Afghanistan. We'd been stationed at a forward operating base in Helmand Province, running intelligence operations in conditions that would make most people's nightmares look like pleasant dreams. He'd saved my life twice, once from an IED that would have turned me into hamburger if he hadn't spotted the disturbed earth and tackled me into a ditch. Once from a superior officer who wanted to use me as a scapegoat for a botched operation that had killed 2 local informants. When you've planned together, you form bonds that don't break. After we both got out, he'd gone into private investigation work. The kind that operates in the grey areas where official channels fear to tread. The kind that gets results when the law can't or won't. I called him the next day from a parking garage using the burner phone I'd taken from Derek's house. Preston Hayes. Well, I'll be damned. His voice was the same. Gravel and cigarettes and absolute reliability. Been, 8 months since we talked. You finally catch someone defrauding the insurance company for something interesting. Or is this a social call? Neither. I need a background check. Deep one. Guy named Derek Whitfield. lived at 447 Maple Drive until about a month ago, software consultant. Supposedly, I could hear the interest sharpening in his voice. Nolan lived for puzzles. What's the story? That's what I need you to find out. Can you meet? Always. There's a bar on 5th in Madison, Flanagan's. Dive joint, but they pour honest drinks and don't ask questions. Tomorrow night, 8:00. I'll be there. 3 days later, Nolan slid into the booth across from me, a manila envelope in his hand and a look on his face that told me I wasn't going to like what was inside. He didn't bother with pleasantries. That wasn't his style. Your boy Derek Whitfield doesn't exist. I set down my beer. Explain. The social security number is fabricated. Good fabrication? Whoever set this up knew what they were doing. Probably paid someone serious money for the work, but fabricated nonetheless. The identity was created 3 years ago, complete with credit history, work references, the whole package. Employment records at a consulting firm that turns out to be basically a shell company. Professional job. Military grade false identity. Military grade. You mean government? Maybe. Or maybe private sector. There are contractors who do this kind of work for people with enough money. The point is, Derek Whitfield doesn't exist. So who the hell was living next door to me? That's the question. Nolan opened the envelope and spread it across the table. Crime scene photos, surveillance images, newspaper clippings. I pulled fingerprints from some items in his house, don't ask how, and ran them through some databases I have access to. Don't ask about those either. He tapped one of the photographs, a headshot of a younger man in a tailored suit. Your neighbor's real name is Elliot Ashford. The name hit me like a physical blow. Everyone in the region knew the Ashford name. Victor Ashford was a real estate mogul with his fingers in half the commercial development in 3 counties. Hotels, shopping centers, residential complexes. According to rumors that never quite made it to indictment, he also had connections to organized crime, money laundering, extortion, maybe worse. The kind of man whose enemies had a habit of disappearing. Ashford, as in Victor Ashford. His son, Elliot Ashford, has been officially missing for 4 years, presumed dead after a boating accident in Miami. Except apparently he wasn't dead. He was living next door to you, calling himself Derek Whitfield, working as a software consultant, and apparently. Nolan gave me a look that held more sympathy than I wanted to see. Getting very friendly with your wife. Why would Victor Ashford's son fake his own death and hide in suburban anonymity? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Nolan leaned back in the booth, nursing his whiskey. There are theories. Word is Elliot and his father had a falling out about 5 years ago. Something about the direction of the family business. Elliot wanted legitimate. Victor wanted to keep the profitable sidelines. Then Elliot died in a boating accident, and Victor collected on a very large life insurance policy. Except Elliot didn't die, which means either he faked his own death to escape his father, or someone else faked it for him. Either way, he's been running ever since. I absorbed this, turning the pieces over in my mind. And now he's disappeared again, which brings us to the uncomfortable question. Nolan's eyes met mine across the table. Preston, what exactly did this guy do with your wife, and what does she know about where he went? I was quiet for a long moment. The bar noise washed over us, country music from a jukebox, the crack of pool balls from the back room, the low murmur of people who came here to forget their troubles. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Brethren, if Victor Ashford is involved in this somehow, you're not playing in the minor leagues anymore. This guy has connections. Serious connections. Police, politicians, possibly federal. He's got a small army of lawyers and an even smaller army of people who make problems go away. You need to be careful. I'm always careful. No, you're always thorough. That's different. Careful means knowing when to walk away. I'll keep that in mind. I didn't intend to walk away from anything. The secure space facility was a maze of corrugated metal units on the industrial side of town. I drove past it twice to get a feel for the layout before parking in a grocery store lot 3 blocks away. Accessing the unit was going to key a pamphlet. It was registered under Derek Whitfield's name, and I didn't have the access code. But Nolan had connections at places like this, security companies staffed by former military people who understood that sometimes the official channels weren't the right channels. He got me the access logs within 48 hours. Unit 247 was accessed twice after your neighbor supposedly skipped town. He told me over the phone. First time, 5 weeks ago, the day after those last texts you mentioned. Second time, 2 weeks ago. Same person, same access code. But here's the facility has cameras, but they're positioned to cover the main entrance and the office, not the individual unit rows. Whoever's been visiting knows the blind spots. I staked out the facility for 3 nights. On the third night, just before 11 p.m., a familiar silver Lexus pulled into the lot. Jenna's car. I watched through binoculars as my wife, the mother of my daughter, the woman I had life with, entered the facility, walked directly to a unit in the back row, and disappeared inside. 22 minutes later, she emerged carrying a small duffel bag. She didn't go home. Instead, she drove downtown to the Ashford Hotel, Victor Ashford's flagship property, and entered through a service entrance, like she'd done it 100 times before. I sat in my car for a long time after that, thinking. Jenna wasn't just hiding evidence of an affair. She was actively involved in something hunking, something that connected her to the Ashford family. The next week was an exercise in controlled patience. I told Jenna I was swamped with a major fraud case at work. Long hours, lots of travel. She seemed relieved. That told me everything I needed to know about the state of our marriage. I installed cameras in our home, hidden in smoke detectors, behind books on shelves, places she'd never think to look, legal in our state since I owned the property. The footage showed nothing incriminating, just Jenna going through the motions of domestic life while I was working late. I hired Nolan to put a GPS tracker on her car. Her movements painted a picture work-home, her sister Bethy's place, the occasional shopping trip, normal suburban wife patterns. Except for Thursday nights, when she drove to an office building downtown and stayed for exactly 90 minutes. The building housed, among other tenants, a private law firm and a regional FBI field office. The FBI, I started digging into our finances, joint accounts, retirement funds, the usual household money. Everything looked normal. But when I requested statements from all the banks where we held accounts, I discovered something she'd never mentioned. A separate account at a credit union across town, opened 18 months ago, current balance 47,000 for 18 months. The timeline clicked into place. That was around when she'd started getting distant. I'd attributed it to work stress. Now I knew better. I took Lily to my mother's house for what I told her was Grandma Week. She was thrilled. Grandma let her stay up late and eat ice cream for breakfast. I kissed her goodbye at the door, and she asked why Daddy looked so serious. Big work project, sweetheart. I'll call you every night. I watched her run into my mother's arms, golden hair bouncing. 7 years of pure joy and innocence. Whatever happened next, whatever ugly truths I uncovered, I would protect her from all of it. Bethany lived in a townhouse on the east side of town, the kind of place that looked upscale until you noticed the thin walls and builder-grade fixtures. She opened the door on the second, and her face went through a rapid sequence of emotions when she saw me: surprise, confusion, and something that looked a lot like fear. "Peston, is everything okay? Is Jenna?" "Jenna's fine. Can I come in?" She stepped aside reluctantly. Her townhouse was decorated in what I'd call recently divorced woman trying to start over. Too many throw pillows, motivational quotes on the walls, a wine rack that saw heavy use based on the collection of empties in the recycling bin visible through the kitchen doorway. I declined her offer of coffee or wine and sat down in an armchair across from the couch. Bethany perched on the edge of a cushion, hands twisting in her lap, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else on earth. "I wanted to talk to you about Derek Whitfield," I said. The color drained from Bethy's face so fast I thought she might pass out. Her mouth opened and closed twice before she managed to speak. "I don't know who. Bethany." I let my voice go flat. Professional. The voice I used when interrogating fraud suspects who thought they could lie their way out of trouble. "I found his things in my garage. I know about the affair. What I don't know is what happened to him." Her eyes filled with tears. "Preston, you have to understand, she's my sister. She made me promise." "Promise what?" "Not to say anything. She said it would ruin everything, that you could never know." "Well, I know now, so the promise is moot. What I need from you is the truth." Bethy's composure crumbled. She grabbed a tissue from a box on the end table and pressed it against her eyes. "She came to me about 2 months ago, maybe 6 weeks. She was a mess, crying, shaking, the whole thing. I'd never seen her like that. She told me she'd been seeing someone, a neighbor. She said it just happened, that she never meant for it to go so far. Derek." "Yes, Derek." She said the name like it burnt her nose. "She told me she was going to end it, that it had gotten too complicated. She said he was becoming dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "I don't know specifics." She wouldn't tell me. Just that she'd found out something about him, something that scared her, something that made her realize she was in way of her head, and she ended the affair. She said she handled it. She kept using that word. Handled. She said Derek was gone, that he wasn't coming back, and that you could never find out about any of it. There it was again, that word. Handled. "Bethany, look at me." I waited until her red eyes met mine. "Do you think Jenna did something to Derek?" Her face crumpled completely. A sob escaped her chest. "I don't know." "God help me, Preston, I turn. She's different now. Harder, colder. I barely recognize her sometimes, but she's my sister, and I couldn't ask. I didn't want to know. Some part of me was afraid of what the answer might be. What about the last few weeks? Has she said anything else? Mentioned Derek at all?" Bethany shook her head. She acts like he never existed, like the whole thing was a bad dream she's trying to forget. but she's not sleeping well. I can tell when I taunt her, and she jumps at loud noises. Whatever happened, Preston, whatever she did or didn't do, it's eating her alive. I stood up. There was nothing on to get from Bethany. She'd told me everything she knew, and what she didn't know wasn't going to help me. If she contacts you about this conversation, I need to tell me immediately. Can you do that? Bethany nodded, tears still streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Preston. I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner. I should have. I let myself out without responding. Apologies weren't going to fix anything. The black SUV started appearing 3 days later. It would park down the street from my house, engine idling, windows tinted, too dark to see inside. It sat there for hours sometimes, not moving, just watching. It followed me to work twice, hanging back just far enough to seem like coincidence to anyone who wasn't trained to spot surveillance. I wasn't concerned about the SUV itself. I was a trained investigator who'd spent years in military intelligence. Amateurs following me in a conspicuous vehicle was almost insulting. What concerned me was the message it sent. Someone with resources was taking an interest in my activities. But then came the parking garage. I was walking to my car after work, briefcase in hand, mind running through the day's developments, when 2 men materialized from between vehicles. They moved with the silent efficiency of professionals, not cops, not ordinary security. Something more dangerous. Big guys, gym, built, wearing suits that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. They positioned themselves to block my path to the car and the exit simultaneously. Classic pincer formation. They'd done this before. Mr. Hayes, one of them said. Eastern European accent, maybe Russian or Ukrainian. Someone would like you to stop asking questions about Derek Whitfield. I stopped walking but kept my posture relaxed. Is that right? It is in your best interest and the interest of your family. The second man spoke, his accent identical. Your daughter attends Jefferson Elementary. Yes. She has dance house on Wednesdays. Your wife drives a silver Lexus. Your mother lives on Oak Street. We know everything about you, Mr. Hayes. Everything. My hand stayed relaxed at my sides, but inside, something cold and hard began to crystallize. These men had just made a serious mistake. They'd mentioned my daughter. You can tell your employer that I don't respond well to threats. The first one smiled without humor, showing teeth that had probably cost as much as the suits. That is not a threat, Mr. Hayes. That is advice. Good advice from people who know what happens when this advice is not taken. We have seen it end time. It never ends well for the curious ones. They turned and walked away without looking back. I memorized their faces, their builds, the way they moved. Right-handed, probably armed, military or paramilitary training. Every detail filed away for future reference. That night, after Lily was asleep and Jenna had retreated to our bedroom with a book, my phone rang. Unknown number. I stepped out onto the back patio before answering. Mr. Hayes. The voice was cultured, controlled. The voice of old money and older power. The kind of voice that was used to being obeyed. My name is Victor Ashford. I believe we have something to discuss. I kept my voice neutral. I'm listening. My son was living next door to you under an assumed name. I'm sure you figured that out by now. My sources tell me you're quite thorough in your investigations. What you may not have figured out is that he's been missing for over a month. No contact with anyone. Vanished completely. Why are you telling me this? Because I think your wife knows what happened to him. I've been trying to find answers through conventional means, surveillance, careful inquiries, but I'm running out of patience. So here's my proposal, Mr. Hayes, and I strongly suggest you listen carefully. He paused, letting the silence stretch. A negotiating tactic. I waited him out. You help me find out where my son is, or I find out myself. And I'm not as delicate in my methods as you might be. I don't have the constraints you operate under. No HR department, no legal compliance, no rules of evidence. Just results. Is that a threat, Mr. Ashford? It's a statement of fact. You have a beautiful daughter. 7 years old, correct? Lily, blonde hair, blue eyes, takes after her mother. She attends Jefferson Elementary School, walks home on Tuesdays and Thursdays when your wife picks her up late because of those marketing meetings. The ones that run until 6. Vision went red. Genuine, burning red. The kind that precedes violence that men like me are trained to control but never truly escape. I forced myself to breathe in. Hold. Out. If you so much as look at my daughter. I'm not threatening your child, Mr. Hayes. Please, I'm not a monster. His voice carried just a hint of offense, as if I'd questioned his manners at a garden party. I'm illustrating how much I know about your life, how easily I could disrupt it. I know when he won't, where your mother lives, where your wife gets her hair done. I know about the life insurance policy you took out last year and the savings account you maintain for Lily's education. I know everything about you. What do you want? Ashford. I want my son. I want to know where he is, alive or dead, and I want to know what happened to him. Help me find those answers, and I'll ensure you and your family are well compensated, generously compensated, the kind of money that changes lives. And if I don't help, then I find the answers myself. And when I do, I'll be considerably less concerned about collateral damage. Your wife is clearly involved in whatever happened to my son. I could have her brought to me for questioning. I could make her tell me what she knows. But that would be messy, complicated, bad for everyone. I'd rather do this civilly, Mr. Hayes, like gentlemen. He hung up. I sat in the darkness of my back patio for a long time thinking. Victor Ashford had resources, connections, and absolutely no ethical boundaries. If I didn't find out what happened to his son before he ran out of patience, he would tear my entire life apart to get to Jenna. He'd do it without hesitation, without remorse, and without caring who got caught in the crossfire. But I wasn't going to cower. I wasn't an impeg. I was going to find the truth, and then I was going to use it as a weapon. I called Nolan the next morning. I need everything you can dig up and Victor Ashford. Every piece of dirt, every skeleton, every vulnerability, financial records, business dealings, personal life, all of it. We're going on offense. That's a dangerous game, brother. Ashford has connections you don't want to test. He threatened my daughter. He made it very clear what he's capable of. The only way to beat a man like that is to have something he wants more than revenge, or something he fears more than losing. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Nolan laughed, a dry sound without much hymen in it. All right, let's go to war. 3 days later, Nolan picked the lock on Derek's storage unit while I kept watch. The inside was packed with carefully organized boxes, a laptop, several external hard drives, and sitting in a fireproof safe that someone had left unlocked, 200,000 in cash. Well, Nolan said, looking at the money, your neighbor was into something heavy. The boxes contained documents, hundreds of pages of financial records, communications, photos. It took us 4 hours to go through everything, and by the end, my understanding of the situation had completely inverted. Derek Elliot had been building a case against his father for years. The documents detailed financial crimes, bribery of public officials, and outstanding 2 manslaughter cases that had been buried through payoffs and witness intimidation. Victor Ashford had killed people, or had them killed, and his own son had been gathering evidence to bring him down. Hidden among the papers was a letter from the Department of Justice. Elliot Ashford had been offered immunity in exchange for his testimony. He was working with the FBI. And then I found the photographs, Derek and Jenna together, which I expected. Intimate moments caught on camera, probably by Derek himself for insurance purposes, but there were other photos too. Jenna meeting with a man in a suit outside a coffee shop. Jenna handing the same man a folder of documents. The man's face was visible in several shots, sharp features, military bearing. The look of someone used to handling sensitive information. I photographed everything, the documents, the photos, the cash. Then Nolan and I put it all back exactly as we'd found it. What now? Nolan asked. Now I find out who the man in the suit is and what my wife has been giving him. The man's name was Thomas Webb. Special Agent Thomas Webb, FBI, assigned to the Organized Crime Task Force that had been investigating Victor Ashford for the past 5 years. This changed everything. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She wasn't just hiding evidence. She was somehow involved in a federal investigation, either as a witness, an informant, or something else entirely. The question was, which side was she on? I gave Jenna 3 more days of normally, while I built my case, compiled the evidence, created timelines, documented every inconsistency in her story. When I was ready, I waited until a Thursday evening, one of her FBI nights, and confronted her the moment she walked through the door. She came in looking tired, case in hand, already composing her face into the expression of a woman who'd had a long day at work. Then she saw me sitting in the living room with the lights dim and the burner phone sitting on the coffee table in front of me. "Sit down." "Jenna?" "Person, what?" "Sit down." She sat. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't pace or gesture or any of the theatrical things people do in movies. I just laid out the evidence piece by piece, like I was presenting a fraud case to a jury. The T-shirt, the cufflink, the Cullen Fund, and its messages, her deleted text history, her visits to the storage unit, her meetings with Agent Webb, the timeline of Derek's disappearance. Every lie she'd told, every truth she'd concealed, documented and displayed. By the time I finished, she was crying. But I noticed she wasn't apologizing for the affair. She was crying about something else. "I need you to tell me everything," I said. "The truth, this time, all of it." And she did. She'd met Derek at a neighborhood barbecue 2 years ago. The attraction had been immediate. The affair started within months. She knew it as wrong. She kept using that word, wrong, like it was some kind of intellectual concept rather than a betrayal that had shattered our family. But she couldn't stop. Then, 6 months ago, she'd found something in Derek's house, a passport hidden in a drawer with his photograph, but a different name. For Elliot Ashford. She'd confronted him, threatened to leave, threatened to tell me. He'd begged her to keep his secret, explained about his father, the crimes, the fake death, the FBI. He told her that if Victor ever found him, he'd be killed. Jenna, terrified and in over her head, had agreed to stay silent. But Derek wanted more than silence. His company had done consulting work for Jenna's pharmaceutical firm. He'd discovered that her company was implicated in a bribery scheme involving Victor Ashford's associates. Bribes to doctors, kickbacks to hustler-linisators, the kind of corporate corruption that carried serious federal charges. He wanted Jenna to help him get documents, internal communications, financial evidence, anything that could strengthen the case against his father. The FBI had approached her separately, through Derek. Agent Webb had explained that she could either cooperate voluntarily or face potential charges herself. She'd chosen to cooperate. "I was going to tell you," she said, tears and mascara streaming down her face. "I was going to tell you everything once it was over. Once Derek testified and his father was in prison, and we could. You were going to tell me my wife was sleeping with another man while also serving as a federal informant. That you brought a crime family's attention to our home, to our daughter. I was trying to protect you, both of you. If you didn't know anything, you couldn't be implicated." "Where is Derek, Jenna?" She went very still. "What?" "He disappeared 5 weeks ago, the night after he sent you that text about what you found. You replied, 'It's handled.' So I'm asking you, what did you handle? Where is he?" "I don't know." The words came out as a wail. He was supposed to meet with Agent Webb that night. Some kind of final debrief before the extraction. He never showed up. His car was found abandoned at a state park 3 days later. The FBI thinks his father's people got to him somehow. But they don't have proof. "And you've been doing what?" "Going to the storage unit, meeting with Webb, trying to figure out what happened, trying to find out if he's alive or dead. Agent Webb thinks there's a leak in the FBI. Someone feeding information to Victor Ashford. They're investigating internally, but it's slow. And meanwhile, I'm trapped, Preston. I don't know what to do." I looked at my wife for a long moment. This woman I'd been to life with, made a child with, trusted. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice flat. "You're going to tell me everything you know about this investigation, every document you've provided, every conversation you've had with Agent Webb, every detail about Derek's plans and movements. You're going to cooperate with me the way you cooperated with the FBI, completely and without holding anything back. And then what? And then I'm going to find out what happened to Derek, because Victor Ashford gave me a deadline, and if I don't have answers before he runs out of patience, he's going to come after all of us, including Lily." Jenna's face went white. "Lily," he threatened Lily, who made it clear he knows everything about our lives. "So right now, finding Derek is the priority. After that," I stood up. "After that, you and I are going to have a very different conversation. One where I explain exactly what's going to happen to our marriage. Preston, don't apologize. Don't explain. Don't beg. You made choices. Every single day, for 2 years, choices to lie to me, to betray me, to put our family at risk. There's no undoing that. There's only what comes next." I walked out of the room and didn't look back. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in compartmentalization. During the day, I worked with Jenna to compile everything she knew about Derek's movements and the FBI investigation. During the nights, I worked with Nolan on our own parallel investigation. The security footage from the gas station was the first real break. Nolan had contacts who could access traffic, cameras, and private surveillance systems throughout the state. 50 miles from the state park where Derek's car was abandoned, a gas station camera had captured his vehicle, with a woman driving. The image quality was grainy, but one detail was unmistakable: the driver was wearing a distinctive red leather jacket. I'd bought that jacket for Jenna on our 5th anniversary. It was her favorite. "That's not Jenna," Nolan said when I showed him the footage. "Look at the proportions. Jenna's what, 5'7"? This woman's at least 3 inches tall. See how her head nearly touches the roof of the car." He was right. The build was wrong, too. Broader shoulders, longer torso. Someone was wearing Jenna's jacket to frame her. Derek had a cleaning woman, I said, remembering. Came twice a month. Tall, quiet, Eastern European accent. He called her Eva. Nolan ran the name through his databases. Eva didn't exist, but a woman named Natasha Kovalenko, former employee of a security firm with ties to Victor Ashford, matched the physical Simpson perfectly. Victor had a mole next door all along. Someone watching his son, reporting back, waiting for the right moment. And when that moment came, she'd made sure the evidence pointed at my wife. Natasha Kovalenko was living in a cabin 3 hours north, on property owned by an Ashford shell company. Nolan found her through a combination of financial forensics and what he called enhanced persuasion techniques, applied to some of Victor's lower-level employees, the kind of people who talked when the alternative was worse. I drove up alone on a Tuesday morning, telling Jenna I was following a lead on the FBI investigation. I didn't tell her where or what I expected to find. At this point, I trusted her about as far as I could throw her, which was to say not at all. The drive took 3 hours through increasingly rural terrain. The last 20 miles were on unpaved roads that twisted through dense pine forests. The kind of place where a person could disappear and be found. That, I realized, was probably the point. The cabin itself was isolated, surrounded by pine trees, accessible only by a single dirt road that I could see for half a mile in either direction. Anyone approaching would be visible long before they arrived. I parked a half-mile out and approached on foot, using the forest for cover. 8 years of army training, and I'd never expected to use it for something like this, stalking through American woodland with a concealed carry weapon and a very personal mission. The front door was reinforced steel, but the back window had a simple latch lock. An oversight, probably, or maybe just arrogance. I slipped inside and let my eyes adjust to the dim interior. The cabin smelled like stale food, unwashed bodies, and fear. The kind of smell that soaks into walls and never quite comes out. Kitchen to my left, living area to my right, stairs leading down a basement. I found him down there. Derek Elliot was chained to a support beam, sitting on a concrete floor stained with things I didn't want to identify. Rust-colored patches that could have been old paint, but probably weren't. He was thinner than I remembered, his face a swollen mess of bruises in various stages of healing, yellow and green and fresh purple. But his eyes were alert when they found, tracking my movement with the wariness of a trapped animal. Hayes. His voice was a croak, dry and broken from screaming or disuse, or both. "How the hell did you? Long story. Are you alone here? She left this morning. Natasha goes into town for supplies, usually comes back around 6. He coughed, a wet, ugly sound that suggested damaged ribs. They've been interrogating me, trying to find where I hid the evidence, the documents, the recordings, everything I gathered against my father. Did you tell them? A ghost of a smile crossed his broken face. I've been beaten by professionals before. My father made sure of that growing up. This is nothing. I never told them about the storage unit. I knelt beside him and examined the chains. Heavy-duty padlocks, industrial grade, nothing I could pick quickly. I need to get you out of here. Listen to me first. His hand gripped my wrist with surprising strength. Desperation lending him energy he shouldn't have had. Your wife didn't betray me. I know you probably think she did. I know how it must look. But she didn't. This was all Victor's doing. He had someone inside the FBI feeding him information. A mole in the task force. That's how he found me. I know about the leak. Then, it wasn't Jenna. She was trying to help. She was scared. Terrified. Honestly, way over her head in something she never should have been involved in. But she was trying to help. The frame job, the jacket, the timing, making it look like she drove my car. That was all Natasha. Victor wanted to kill two birds with one stone. Get rid of me and set up Jenna to take the fall. No loose ends, no witnesses. Just a dead son and a convenient scapegoat. Why would he want to frame Jenna specifically? Because she knows things. Her pharmaceutical company was involved in the bribery scheme. They paid off doctors and hospital administrators through Victor's network. If Jenna testifies about that, it's another nail in his coffin. But if she's arrested for my murder, convicted of killing her lover, her credibility as a witness is destroyed. Victor walks away clean. I absorbed this, filing it away for later analysis. Right now, getting Derek out was the priority. I found bolt cutters in a tool shed outside and freed him from the chains. He could barely walk. Something was wrong with his right leg, probably a knee injury from the beatings, but he could move, and that was enough. I half carried him up the stairs, through the cabin, and out to the tree line. There's something else, he said as I helped him through the forest toward my car. Recordings. I had a device hidden in the basement. Tiny, looked like a screw in the wall. Recorded everything Natasha said while she was interrogating me. Names, dates, details about what Victor ordered. She was bragging about it. Thought I was too broken to matter anymore. That recording is your insurance. That's what's going to put Victor away. I'll come back for it. Don't call Agent Webb. The real one, not the mole. Tell him about the cabin, about Natasha. She'll come back tonight, and when she does, the FBI can take her. She'll flip on Victor to save herself. People like her always do. I drove him to a hospital 40 miles away, using cash and a fake name to check in. Then I called Agent Webb. The FBI raid on the cabin made national news. Natasha Kovalenko was arrested attempting to flee through a back window, carrying a bag packed with cash and a fake passport. Within 24 hours, she'd agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges. Victor Ashford was arrested at his office 3 days later. 47 federal charges: racketeering, kidnapping, attempted murder, obstruction of justice, witness tampering. The evidence from the storage unit, combined with Derek's recordings and Natasha's testimony, built an airtight case. I watched the news coverage from my mother's living room, Lily asleep in the guest room down the hall. Victor Ashford being led away in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. Justice, I thought, but not my justice. that was still coming. I began divorce proceeding. The paperwork was straightforward. Irreconcilable differences, no fault dissolution. My lawyer, a former Army JAG officer who under her set of strategic warfare, knew the full story and helped me position everything for maximum advantage. Jenna didn't fight it. I think part of her was relieved. The last month had stripped away every pretense, every carefully constructed fiction about who we were and what our marriage meant. There was nothing left to fight for, but I wasn't satisfied with a simple divorce. Jenna had brought chaos into my home, endangered my daughter, and lied to me for 2 years. She needed to understand the consequences of those choices. The leak to her company's board happened 3 weeks after Victor's arrest. An anonymous source, Nolan was very good at covering his tracks, provided documentation of Jenna's FBI cooperation, along with details about her testimony regarding questionable marketing practices. Her pharmaceutical company had been working hard to distance themselves from the Ashford scandal. A direct connection through a mill, setable. She was terminated within 10 days. Her severance package went entirely to legal fees for the employment dispute. The non-compete clause in her contract effectively blacklisted her from the industry. The story about her affair spread through our social circle organically. I didn't have to do anything. The news coverage of Victor's arrest mentioned a neighborhood connection to the key witness, and people talked. Friends we'd known for years suddenly stopped returning her calls. Invitations dried up. The support network she'd relied on for a decade evaporated like morning dew. The custody hearing was almost anticlimactic. My lawyer presented evidence of Jenna's pattern of deception and involvement in dangerous circumstances. Her lawyer, a public defender since she could no longer afford private representation, did his best, but the facts were the facts. I was awarded primary custody of Lily. Jenna got visitation rights every other weekend, alternating holidays, standard divorced parent arrangements. On the day she moved out of our house, the house I would be keeping, along with most of our assets, she stopped at the door and turned to look at me. "Do you hate me?" I considered the question. I'd spent 2 months preparing for this moment, imagining what I'd say, how I'd make her understand the magnitude of what she'd done. "Hate would require me to care," I said finally. "I spent 9 years building a life with someone who didn't exist. You made a choice every single day to lie to me. You made a choice to betray our marriage. You made a choice to put our daughter at risk. Now you get to live with those choices. Alone." She opened her mouth to say something else, but I closed the door before she could speak. I didn't watch her drive away. 6 months later, Lily and I were settled into our new normal. I'd transferred her to a school closer to my mother's house, built a routine that revolved around homework, help and soccer practice, and Sunday dinners at Grandma's place. The nightmares had mostly stopped. For a while I dreamed about the cabin, about what would have happened if I'd arrived a day later, a week later, not at all. About Lily growing up with a mother in prison for a murder she didn't commit, about Victor Ashford getting away with everything. I'd started seeing a therapist, a former military psychologist who understood the specific brand of trauma that comes with discovering your entire life was built on lies. Progress was slow, but it was progress. Derek Elliott had gone into witness protection after testifying at his father's trial. He'd be someone else now, somewhere else, building a new identity for the 3rd time. Before he left, he'd asked to meet with me one last time. We sat in a coffee shop near the federal courthouse, both of us looking over our shelters out of habit. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not just for Jenna, although that too, but for all of it. You got dragged into something you never asked for, and you handled it better than anyone I've ever met. You were hiding from people who wanted to kill you. I understand why you did what you did. That doesn't make it right." "No," I agreed. "It doesn't. But I don't need revenge on you. Your father's in prison. You're going into hiding forever. You'll never have a normal life. Never settle down. Never stop looking over your shoulder. Never really trust Henning at N. That's enough." He nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I hope you find someone who deserves you. You're a good man, Preston Hayes. Take care of yourself, Elliot." We shook hands. I never saw him again. The trial took 8 months. Victor Ashford's lawyers tried every trick in the book: procedural challenges, character assassination, even a temporary insanity defense that got laughed out of court. In the end, the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Victor was sentenced to life without parole. His real estate empire was seized under Richo statutes. His assets frozen. His legacy destroyed. The newspapers called it the end of an era. I didn't attend the sentencing. I didn't need to. By then, I'd moved on. Lily and I were having dinner on a Tuesday evening when my phone buzzed. A text from Nolan Victor Ashford denied bail on appeal. "It's really over." I looked at the message for a long moment, then turned off my phone and set it aside. "Dad." Lily looked up from her spaghetti. "Who was that?" "Nobody important, sweetheart. Just work stuff." She nodded, accepting this as 7-year-olds do. Then her face brightened with a new thought. "Dad, can we get a dog?" I looked at my daughter, her mother's eyes, but my stubborn chin, my tendency to ask direct questions and expect direct answers. She'd been through more upheaval in the past year than most kids experience in a lifetime, and she'd handled it with a resilience that constantly amazed me. Jenna had weekend visitation rights, but Lily was increasingly reluctant to go. She never said anything negative about her mother. Kids that age are loyal in ways they don't even understand. But she always seemed relieved when Sunday evening came, and she was back home with me. This was home now. This small house with the yard that needed work, and the kitchen that was too cramped for serious cooking. This life we were building together, just the two of us. "Yeah," I said, surprising myself with a smile that spread across my face. "Yeah, I think we can do that." Lily's answering grin was bright enough to light up the room. She launched into an immediate campaign for a golden retriever. She'd been researching breeds, apparently, keeping this request in reserve until she sensed I was ready to hear it. I let her talk, nodding along, making mental notes about puppy training and veterinarian recommendations. Outside the window, the sun was setting over our quiet neighborhood, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was the life I had, and for the first time in a very long time, that felt like enough.